let's talk about the world and spirituality. I don't think spirituality is in conflict with being successful financially. Well, pain is part of life, but suffering is optional.
Hello everyone, welcome to Spiritual Atma. Today I have Claudia G with me. Namaskar, Claudia G. Um,
Hi,
a,
Verity.
a bit about Claudia is Claudia runs an inner well-being organization. She is a yoga practitioner, a yoga teacher, and a person who truly believes in changing people from inside and helping people's inner well-being. So I really like the work that you're doing, Claudia, and the reason I wanted to talk to you is to understand a bit of your background and how you basically got inspired to get into this, and also you have been to India several times, so I want to know your experience and how India is for people who aspire in spirituality. Is India offering everything, or is there anything that that you think should be done better, and things like that? So first of all, welcome to Spiritual Atma and Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you.
So can you tell my viewers a little bit about yourself, about your background? Where are you from? Where were you born, and like things like that?
Yes. Thank you, Raviji, and congratulations on your channel.
Oh,
I
sure.
think
Thank you.
it's fantastic that you're doing that, and thanks for inviting me today. So a little about me. A lot of people are curious about my origins and my
Hmm.
interest in Eastern philosophy and all of that. I was born in Mexico City. My family is from Spain, um, probably from Irish background, from northern Spain, northern Europe, and so that's my nuclear family. And I
Hmm.
have family in Spain as well because those are my roots. My parents and my grandparents were born there
Hmm.
in Spain, and I had an opportunity to live in Spain as well for about 6 years
Hmm.
when I was a teenager. So that was great. I had a chance
Yeah.
to live in different continents. So I think that gave me
Hmm.
some cultural background or interest or curiosity for other countries.
Hmm.
And so that's a quick intro about me.
Um, how do you differentiate between spirituality and the Eastern philosophy? Because people here who practice spirituality, they essentially do not have to follow Eastern philosophy, right? So how do you differentiate that, and why did you basically choose to know more about Eastern philosophy, and how did it help you?
Yeah, my interest started when I was very young,
Hmm.
and looking back now, I can explain more how my curiosity started.
Hmm.
I actually, it was interesting. I had a neighbor. I remember living in an apartment complex in
Hmm.
Mexico,
Hmm.
and my neighbor below, her name is Sara.
Okay.
She was psychic, intuitive, and she
Mm.
used to invite me to come over to read the cards to
Mm.
me, and we had a connection. She was fantastic, and I remember my mom was not very happy about me going to the neighbor. I was young. I was like
Yeah.
12 years old, 11,
Hmm.
and but they knew each other, so she said, okay, I know who she is. I
Mm.
trust her. But she was not common. She was not an ordinary person in terms of what you expect from
Mm.
a woman in Mexican culture reading the
Mm.
cards. And
Mm.
so I really like that. And I remember wanting to do what she was doing. But then I
Mm.
got busy I started studying law in Mexico. So I got busy with that and I got sidetracked a little. But I always kept my curiosity for spirituality and
Mm.
yoga. So she gave me some journals, some magazines
Mm.
about yoga and meditation and the chakras. So that was the first time I was really starting to read about it, understand it,
Mm.
and it really resonated with me. It was not weird to me. It was like, this is fantastic. I want to know
Mm.
more. So slowly I pick up a book here and there, and I started reading a little bit about yoga, meditation. But it was not until later, until I came to live in the United States about 21 years ago, that I really found the time and the freedom to really study yoga. I became a yoga teacher, certified, and Ayurveda and trainings and all of that. So I really got into that. And 6 or 7 years ago, I started my organization, InnerWellbeing, to provide all the resources of Eastern philosophy. So regarding your question about what is spirituality to me, and the fact that in India, not everybody follows Eastern philosophy, but they are spiritual. Okay, so I think spirituality is universal. Right? I don't think it, I know it, right? And I think everybody agrees with that. So that is the beauty, the attraction about spirituality, that it doesn't belong to anyone. There is no copyrights, right? No religion. So spirituality is simply being in touch with yourself, with your deeper, the core of your being, a higher dimension, whatever it is, your religion. So that is spirituality. And that's why it makes sense that some people in India may not follow specific philosophy, but they are still considered spiritual.
And that's the case in I mean elsewhere as well, I think. So I mean, from your so you basically started coming back to yoga or practicing yoga after, you said, after your law or after you came to US, is it? So was it just natural, or was there any low point in your life that made you realize that, oh, you know, I need to look at life in a different way, you know? So what was that? What was it for you?
It was a combination of both situations. It was personal growth. I wanted more. I always been a very deep child, you know, and since I was little, you know, at family gatherings, I was the one asking the deep questions and let's play a game. And my game was like, let's talk about the world and spirituality, you know? So I naturally stepped into yoga just because I think it was my destiny. But at the same time, and when I say yoga, I don't mean only the exercises. I mean the science of yoga, right? Which is a lot of things like meditation, Raya yoga, Jnana yoga, knowledge, reading, studying the science of yoga psychology. And at the same time, about 10 or 11 years ago, I was going through a transition, very strong transition in my life. I ended a relationship, long-term committed relationship with a partner. And even when it was a good decision that we both made, I think it was hard, you know, because the end of a relationship is a death. It's the end of an era. We knew since we were teenagers. He was my best friend. So it was very hard. But, you know, life sometimes takes you paths that you don't understand at the moment, right? But there is a reason why some people's paths separate. And so yoga helped me, you know, to go through that transition. And then after that, a series of events also happened that I was changing, I was transforming. And I left my job. I didn't want to be a lawyer anymore and work in law firms. It was a very competitive environment, a little negative, you know, a lot of ego and arrogance. And so for different reasons, I wanted to take a break, a sabbatical, to take care of myself. After working nonstop, you know, since I came to the US, you know, when you first come to this country, you have all the energy and you want to prove the world that you're unstoppable and the American dream and all of that. So I have been there, and it's great. It gives you a lot of energy and motivation. Maybe you're going through that too, right? Because you're in Boston and you work here. But at some point, I wanted a more spiritual life, not so materialistic, you know. So I didn't care about the house, the car, you know. I just want to dedicate to my spirituality
Mm.
and of
But
course doing well, right? I don't think spirituality is in
mhm.
conflict with being successful financially. And
Definitely, yeah. And
yeah.
and I really like the fact that you have actually taken spirituality so seriously, that you have started an organization and you have started spending your time into it, and now that is your future. It looks like, is it?
Yes, yes. Well, I think it's always been with me, and it has been growing,
Mm,
my spiritual side, polishing that aspect of me.
mm.
Yes.
Okay, that's cool. That's really great. So what you said, you basically had a very long term relationship. So what was it in spirituality that basically helped you so much? I mean, what is that thing that basically made you realize?
Yes, I knew intuitively that spirituality provides all the answers to people's problems.
Hmm.
Most of the answers, well, all the answers, but you have to know where to look
Hmm.
and what questions to ask, right?
Yeah.
And I knew that because I wanted more from life, a
Hmm.
more meaningful life.
Hmm.
Yeah, not that my life was not meaningful, but it was just average, right?
Hmm.
And I wanted more, and that was the situation at that time.
Hmm.
And also my partner didn't want to come along with me. I
Hmm.
suggested, let's do yoga, let's learn about Buddhism or Hinduism.
Hmm.
And he was like, no, no, that's not our religion, that's not our thing.
Hmm.
So I knew that we were meant to maybe grow apart,
Hmm.
um, you know
Okay.
and that's what it is.
Hmm.
But so your question was,
Like
repeat that
what
again.
what was what
What
was
was
it that
in
you were?
spirituality
Hmm.
that I was looking for? Yes, to
Hmm.
help me.
Hmm.
So yes, so spirituality provides a lot of answers to your problems. So when we are all go through transitions,
Hmm.
changes,
Yeah.
challenges, losses,
Hmm.
everybody is going through suffering and pain in this life. The
Yeah.
physical existence comes with suffering.
Hmm.
And so one of the principles of spirituality is that suffering is part of life. Well, pain is part of life, but suffering is optional, right?
Hmm.
That's one of the
Yeah.
principles that we all know.
Hmm.
And so that is, it teaches you how to navigate painful situations without losing yourself in them,
Yeah.
because you're never alone. You are always connected to higher consciousness,
Hmm.
Atman,
Hmm.
Brahman, however you want to call it, your higher self. We have that connection, that we are never alone. We are all one consciousness.
Yeah.
And once you understand that concept, you are invincible. You can navigate any problem, any
Hmm.
pain, any challenge, any defeat, right? So there is no other place that gives you that support, that those answers to
Hmm.
navigate life in a
Yeah.
healthy way. So instead of using drugs to cope with problems, I work with a lot of people in substance abuse prevention and
Hmm.
domestic violence. So sometimes when we have a lot of issues, problems, challenges, pain, emotional pain, even physical pain, we cope in negative ways. So
Yeah.
spirituality, I call spirituality that grounding, those
Hmm.
universal principles that I
Hmm.
found in Eastern philosophies, right?
Hmm.
Like the schools of Hinduism, like Vedanta or Sankhya,
Yeah.
all of those have the core of all these universal teachings that
Hmm.
never change. They are eternal. They apply to everyone.
Yeah.
So I knew that. I understand it better now, but
Hmm.
I knew that back then. So I thought that yoga, meditation, and reading
Yeah.
about it will help me go through those transitions, work wise and
Hmm.
relationship wise, and for personal growth, regardless
Yeah.
of those
Yeah.
situations. Yes.
I do I did, like, when I talk to my friends, or when I had some conversation, I used to always mention how it helps in personal growth, even though you are not facing any challenges in your life. Just by meditating, you are basically just talking to yourself and just improving yourself, so that definitely helps in your personal growth wherever you are, even if you are in corporate world, or even if you are in corporate politics. so it really
Yeah.
helps you traverse it. So what I wanted to, from your answer, what the question that I wanted to ask, a lot of people that I talk to, um, they are into spirituality and then they show a lot of interest in Eastern philosophy, and that I feel sometimes just turns off the people who still want to stick to their faith. So like if for somebody who wants to stick to their faith but still practice spirituality, what would be the best starting point? What do you think? I mean,
Yes, spirituality and Eastern philosophy, uh, the teachings of Eastern philosophies, right? I call that the the six main schools of Hinduism
mm-hmm,
yes. So those were the foundation, are the foundation, right? It originated those universal principles,
mm-hmm,
Sanatan Dharma, all of that. They originated in India, definitely, right? And the
mm-hmm,
world is understanding that. So you are very lucky to be born there and having that background,
thank you.
because it is, the world needs that. The human evolution. We are doing a transition from animals to human beings to spiritual beings,
Mm-hmm,
and Eastern philosophy guides you. It's a roadmap,
mm-hmm,
right? But it is so diverse, right? When I learned that there are so many gods and goddesses, they include the male and the female principle of God, the
mm-hmm.
principle of God. It is applicable to everyone. You have options. And sometimes it's hard for Western minds to understand what I'm saying, because it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah, that
multiple
is why I
gods,
actually wanted to mainly
goddesses.
talk to
Yes,
you and understand the Western perspective as well. Because me being born, raised in India, I mean, it's very easy for me to understand all this, but for a Westerner to understand the Eastern
yeah.
philosophy, that's why I wanted to like talk to you. That's the main reason.
It's very hard to understand. Yeah, it has to click with you eventually. Maybe not in
Mm,
this lifetime, and it's fine. It's okay. No pressure. We are not here to convert anyone. It has to be
yeah.
natural, organic. You have
Mm-hmm,
to be ready.
mm-hmm,
And for some people, they don't have an interest. That's okay. It's not
mm-hmm,
their journey. It's not their time. I personally feel, and I know that everyone is a spiritual being.
yeah.
Everyone has a soul, a spirit, and we
Mm-hmm,
are all connected to this higher dimension. That's why
yeah.
when we look at a sunset or a sunrise, we are in awe. We are like, wow,
Yeah.
this world is so magnificent. That is the magic, the mystery, right, of
Yeah.
creation and all of that. So it's undeniable that we there's more to life than this physical body.
Yeah.
But in the West, in America, and where we live right now, you and I, nobody teaches that in school. So
Yeah.
since you are little, they are indoctrinated to believe very specific structures, right? Like
Mm,
there's the brain and there's the body. The
mm,
soul, we don't know. It
mm,
depends on your religion, but you
yeah.
don't you don't have to be in any religion
Mm,
to feel your soul.
yeah.
That's what I love about practicing spiritual practices, sadhana,
Mm-hmm,
as it's taught in India, because they teach you how to connect with that, and it's
mm.
experiential. So I
So,
wanted to
so
talk
are
about,
you, sorry to cut you off, but are you,
no, go ahead.
I feel that you're trying to say that, I mean, the Eastern or the philosophy that teaches spirituality is not religious. It is not religion at all.
No, not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
We are using words, and words have different
Yeah.
meanings for different people. But when we talk about religion, I mean institutionalized religion, right?
Mm,
Religion that men created. They created a church or a temple
mm-hmm.
or whatever to go and
Yeah.
pray. There is a set of rules, there's a book. That's
Mm,
a religion.
mm,
And as long as it's helping you to be happy and evolve and
yeah.
help you grow, that's fantastic. And that is also part of spirituality, is there is no fighting between beliefs and
Yeah.
religions and all of that. It's
Yeah.
all, everything is the same. Everything is connected to the same God principle, higher consciousness, the one consciousness that
Yeah.
we are all connected.
So if you have to now explain to your like boyfriend from your experiences after you have like you part ways, um, because it looks like he was saying, oh, this is not our religion, this is not our faith, and things like that, right? So would you, whatever you have just talked, would that be an apt explanation, or trying, I mean, in trying to convince him?
Yes, that's something we talked about, but it's not about convincing. I don't believe in convincing people.
Mm-hmm.
Persuading maybe,
Yeah.
but people have to come to a conclusion or an action on their own. I mean, you can inspire them. I
Yeah,
prefer the word
inspire.
inspire them.
Yeah, I think I like the word
Yeah.
inspire. Yeah.
Yes, inspire them maybe, but they have to be interested in their soul. They have to feel
Yeah.
it in their soul. Like, okay, at least have the curiosity to explore.
Mm.
That's how I started since I was little, exploring.
Yeah.
But that was my destiny in this lifetime, to explore, to
Yeah.
get out of my religion, my country, explore other things, explore the world. But a lot of people are just in their box, in their country. They never go out, not even go out of their state. Some people never go out of their state.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I'm not judging. Is what they have to live. Yeah.
So you basically, I mean, as part of your exploration, you basically, if I understand right, you did a solo trip to India, is it? Or like, was it part of some organization, or some ashram? Like, did you do a solo trip first time when you went to India?
Yes. I went to India 3 times so far, and I went by myself. The first time a friend joined me, I wanted to go by myself. I went to a yoga clinic and school, Ayurveda and yoga school clinic in Haridwar. And it was recommended by my yoga teacher in the United States, my first yoga teacher. And I went there to take a course on yoga and Ayurveda. And that's how I went the first time. And of course, we visited a lot of spiritual places and ashrams.
Like what? Can you name some? I mean, the ones that you really liked.
The first time, not a lot, because I was more focused on studying and learning the Ayurveda and doing yoga. We had like a full scheduled discipline. But on the weekends, we would go out around the area in Haridwar. We visited. I don't remember the names, to be honest with you. I still have to practice some names in Hindi.
So were there?
But
So did you? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
It was an ashram that the yoga teacher at the clinic, Ranaji, belongs to in Haridwar. So it's very famous. I should know. The name escapes me right now, but it's by the Ganga, and they have a lot of ceremonies there. And other temples, I don't remember the names because there are so many temples. Like I would have to check my notes, but
so
there were
which place did you feel that? I mean, obviously you went to go. I mean, you've done yoga class and meditation is part of it, and things like that. But at which place did you really feel that, oh, I mean, somebody is like calling me, or like I'm actually getting connected, or like, the universe is calling me, or something like that?
It's so interesting that you asked me that, because I have been thinking about that for the past 3 days, more intensely.
Oh, really?
And in one of my trips, I think it was the second one, I had the opportunity to visit a hermitage in Rishikesh, outside of Rishikesh, not in the city, but very near in the mountains. And it's right there by the Ganges River. And it's an ashram, and hermitage is run by a wonderful, beautiful lady. Her name is Magian. and she's a healer and yogini and psychic reader and all of that. So she became my mentor and my kind of my guru. I think nature is my guru, but I also have other gurus that you click, you have a connection, and they are in your life to support you, your growth and your evolution, right? So so when I visited the Hermitage, it's a small place, beautiful. I felt a connection with the place. It's really peaceful. The energy is fantastic. She has satsang, satsang, satsang once a week, and spiritual gatherings every day, I think. And so that's a place where I really like. I would love to come back many times. And I still see her. We have Zoom meetings, and I keep studying with her. She's from Vedic tradition and Sankhya tradition, so we are practicing a lot of Kriya Yoga and tarot reading and healing methods. I want to keep learning all about that.
So I was gonna, this is, I guess, a good segue. I was gonna ask, like, what are you intending to do with all these learnings, and what do you envision for yourself?
In the United States, when I switched from being a lawyer to the healing arts and the health field, I call it, right, the mental health area, it was an interesting transition, because it almost happened like I was guided to that, I was taking my sabbatical, I said, like, okay, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. I'm going to explore the world. I'm going to follow my intuition and my soul's calling. So I knew I wanted to work with people in NGOs, right? Like non-governmental organizations. And I have been doing that work as an attorney, helping immigrants and refugees from all over the world in the United States. So we help them with legal issues, right, like immigration. And also slowly I was pulled on the mental health and wellness side of those services for immigrants and refugees. So I ended up working not in the legal aspect anymore, but I started working for the IRC, the International Rescue Committee. It's a fantastic non-governmental organization founded by Albert Einstein after the World War II. He said we need an organization, so he started with a small amount of funding, and then it grew to a huge international NGO, and they have war camps all over the world. They have medical facilities, offices, shelters, and there's one in Dallas. So destiny took me there. I applied for a position. I got in. This was several years ago. That's how I made my transition from law to the nonprofit sector. It's more like social work and health and wellness, right? So I started working with refugees, immigrants, visiting them in their transitional housing. I'm talking about people with a lot of pain, right? Coming from war, from Sierra Leone, from Africa, different countries in Africa, from Eastern Europe, a lot of war zones. So they were coming, and from Myanmar, from the war. So we were servicing people with a lot of pain, a lot of trauma. They saw relatives die in their arms, children dying, their own maybe torture or losing everything they own, having to escape. So that really triggered in me, like, wow, this is what I want to do forever. I want to work with people with their pain, with their emotional pain, right? And then the legal stuff can come later, but this is so important. And so at the IRC, I think it was my getaway, the International Rescue Committee, to do that change in the professional area. And then, I was already practicing yoga and meditation and learning Ayurveda, and I started to go to India around that time. So I was inspired to study a master's in mental health, because I knew, like, I had a gift, maybe. I don't want to be arrogant, but I felt like I had a skill, a natural ability to feel others' pain and navigate
Mm.
that and help them somehow. So it's like healing people, right, in
Yeah,
mental health.
that's
And
really
I
nice.
always wanted to complement it with spiritual teachings and
Mm.
healing techniques from India, because I think it's a beautiful, wonderful complement, you know,
Mm.
to have the science of the West and psychology and mental health, but also have the spiritual side
Yeah,
to really help people connect with that dimension, right?
yeah.
That soul and spiritual
Mm.
side. So
Connect
I
with
hope I answer your
themselves mostly.
sorry?
No, I mean, I was saying connecting with themselves mostly, right? I mean that.
Yes, yes, connecting with their anchor, their soul,
Mm.
you know, like,
Yeah.
you know, the other day I was listening to a conversation from a survivor from a Nazi camp in Germany during
Mm.
the World War II,
Mm-hmm.
and before that, and she's an old lady now. She must be in her 80s or something. Beautiful
Mm.
lady. So
Mm.
she gets a lot of requests for interviews, especially now that we are going
Oh,
through
really?
COVID. Like, how do you
Mm.
handle so much pain,
Mm.
surviving a concentration camp? And she said, you always have the choice. The choice
Mm.
is in is your power to suffer or overcome the suffering, or
Mm.
remain a victim for the rest of your life.
Mm.
And she said something very beautiful. She said, when I was seen at the Nazi generals, you know, taking away my parents,
Mm.
sending them to the gas chambers, and you know, I witnessed all of that. I survived, but my entire family died. So she said, I saw the Nazi generals, they were the prisoners, not me,
Mm.
right? Because
Yeah.
they were prisoners of their own hate
Mm-hmm.
and their own disconnection from this. These
Mm.
are my words, not her words, but that's what I understand she's saying.
Yeah.
So that's very powerful, you know. You can go through any situation if you are really feeling that connection with your higher self.
Mm. Yeah, that is so beautiful, right? I mean, to look, I mean, that's a very good perspective. They are the ones who are being controlled, not her, right? And they're trying to control
Yeah,
her as well, you know, ultimately.
exactly.
Yeah.
She was able to see beyond what the suffering that was happening.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know,
Mm.
I think what happened in the Nazi concentration camps is the most horrendous event that the
Yeah.
world has seen, and other mass killings and massacres, you know, maybe in
Yeah.
Africa.
Yeah.
But
So are you having to deal with, I mean, so before that, I want to know what inner well-being, your organization, what does it do and how does it help the society? What are the various things that you
yes, I wanted to build a platform for people to know about my services. So I
do?
started providing yoga classes,
Mm-hmm.
which I still teach, but it's not my core. You know, I don't want to just be a yoga teacher,
Mm-hmm.
but it is good. You know, it's part of your practice, your asanas. You know, to stay healthy and strong.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got certified in Ayurveda, also Ayurveda is part of yoga. You know, it's like nutrition,
Yeah.
uh, um, daily habits, you know, that keep you healthy and strong. And so you can then apply the principles of
Yeah.
meditation, concentration, you know, presence, awareness. So that's what I wanted to provide, and
Mm.
also to to convey my message. You know, I have a message based on my experience and my own intuition and knowledge that I have acquired. So if anybody is willing to listen, you know, and create a community, that's also part of inner well-being. So I
Mm.
started my channel
Mm.
to,
Yeah.
you know, YouTube, as you know, it's a
Yeah,
great
that's where I
platform
found you actually. I was, yeah,
to
that's where I
reaching
actually found.
out to the world. You know, it's like
Mm-hmm.
you reaching out to the world is great.
Yeah. So, so if somebody, I think you've already asked this, I mean, you already answered this question, but I actually have some questions written down here. And I actually have some friends and I was telling them I'm interviewing you. So they were like, oh, I would ask her this question. So I actually listed down the questions.
Okay.
So,
Good.
so I will come back to your journey or your trip to India because I want to know how easy. So when was the first time that you went to India? In which year?
The first time was 2018.
18. Okay. So,
Uh,
how did you find it there? I mean, to go to India itself, all the bureaucracy and all the travel and the um, the travel agents or whatever it is, and then um, and how did you find it I mean, after you went to India? I mean, when you compare to Western countries, it's completely different. It's very different, right? So.
yeah.
So it would have been like a culture shock to you, right? I'm pretty sure. So, and how did you feel? How did you find everything there? And then what do you think you would suggest something that should be changed or something that can be better, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. It wasn't a cultural shock for me because, coming from Mexico, I grew up in
Mm-hmm.
Mexico until I was 8 years old, and then I live in Spain and other places. But I
Mm-hmm.
keep coming back. That's my culture.
Mm-hmm.
And Mexico and India share a lot of things in common. Like
Mm-hmm.
people in Mexico are also more laid back. The family is very important. There's a family
Yeah.
unit. Families live together.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of bureaucracy. Government is very
Mm-hmm.
slow. So I know about that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And also, I think my attitude towards that is one of surrender, which is another principle of Eastern philosophy, to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
If you cannot control the circumstances, just accept the way it is in the present moment. Of course, unless your life is at danger or at risk, you have to take action and of course push back. But it's a general principle, right? That if you find a process that is slow, or government agents or travel agents that are trying to block your purpose or making things difficult, that is their level of consciousness. So the only thing we can do is to try to create a good energy. So not oppose it or being aggressive or complaining and suffering and being a victim, because that only makes things worse.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes having a good energy makes things easy and things go well for
Yeah.
me. But of course, I encounter that. Yes, in India, I saw it. It can be chaotic, like being in New Delhi, and on the streets, there's no lanes for the cars, and there's cows and dogs and people, and it's crazy. But it's fantastic, because in the chaos, there's an order,
Yeah.
right? They know what they're doing. You don't see
Yeah.
people crashing or a lot of accidents. I'm sure there are a lot of accidents, but
Mm-hmm.
but they manage somehow. So is that the ideal way of living? I don't know. I'm not there to judge. I'm just a visitor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very respectful, and I'm there to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I'm nobody better than anybody anywhere.
Yeah.
But the friend that came to me the first time, she was in shock. She had a hard time dealing with a lot of things. She was
Mm-hmm.
like, this is so difficult. How can they live like this in this chaos,
Mm-hmm.
driving and also waiting for appointments? Sometimes it's
Yeah.
slow. And in the school, the yoga clinic, they give you a schedule, and things start maybe an hour later.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm cool, I'm like, whatever, that's the system, and I'm going with the flow. But my
Yeah.
friend was pushing back all the time. She was
Mm-hmm.
upset. She was impatient. But I don't mind, it's nice. And let me tell you something also.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Growing up in Mexico with a family from Spain, European descent,
Mm-hmm.
my family, they are good people, good-hearted people, hardworking, honest people, but they have a little bit of white supremacy perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's unconscious. They cannot
Mm-hmm.
help it.
Yeah.
And since I was little, I was very sensitive to that, and I always argued and discuss with them, like, why do you think we are more intelligent just because we are white? You know, that doesn't make sense. That's not true. And my parents were very frustrated with me because they didn't understand how I was so little and so independent of thought and challenging them in their beliefs. So that helps me also because I'm in a different vibe. You know, I think I really feel the world is one consciousness. Of course, you have to be careful where you go and things you do to protect yourself. But in general, there is no race that is better than other. There is no country that is better than other. All countries have their flaws. And especially in particular, India has a history that is very complicated and Westerners don't know, right? So they go there and they expect their Western habits to transfer. But India gained its independence from England fairly recently. You know, I think it was 1945.
47. Yeah.
Yeah, 47.
47. Yeah.
So that's just 1950s. You know, you have a huge country of 1.3 billion souls who were in a system when they were told what to do, very paternalistic, very oppressive, with this white supremacy bias. And just in the 1950s, they started coming out of this system. And now you are free as a country, and there is billions of people to govern or to guide, you know, as a government. So of course, India has a lot of challenges, like huge challenges. And considering that, they are doing fantastic. They are doing great. You know, it's the country of spirituality. Your prime minister, Narendra Modi, is fantastic. You know, he has a spiritual background. Oh, I think a president like that in the US will transform this country. You know, we need leaders with heart, with spiritual background, not religious, connection with your soul, with the one consciousness, you know, with empathy, with compassion.
Do you think that's going to happen in US?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Eventually, yes, because it may be very slow because in politics, people who are in politics are more there for their ego and their own benefit. They are not there for the people. Very rare exceptions, you know, like grassroots people who really have empathy. They may be the exception, but it will happen eventually, of course, because we are all evolving towards a more spiritual side with more compassion.
That was my next question. So you think that we are shifting towards the spiritual side,
Yes,
as
of
the whole
course.
humankind, you think?
Yeah, absolutely. It's inevitable. That's evolution. It's like the law of gravity. You know, it just happens. It's happening. It has been happening. Yeah.
But when do you think that whole shift has started though? Because that was not how it was before, right? So what is it that has changed now? Or maybe are you basically just basing it off of your life experience, you know, but not thinking about before, I mean, the history before you were born, and we don't know how it was though, right? So now we are seeing that the whole world is shifting towards spirituality. Maybe even people who were living back then, like let's say in 1800s, were also thinking the same, isn't it?
Yes. It goes in cycles. You know, it is saying that the world is shifting to spirituality is not very accurate, because if we go back to Native Americans, you know, the time of the Vedas, you know, 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, people were very spiritual. You know, like the own Native Americans of this land in America, they were connected to the earth, to Mother Nature. They prayed to the mountains, to the rivers. They had spiritual practices.
Most of the
fire
native cultures
ceremonies.
were like that, I think.
Yeah, indigenous cultures around the world, they were like that. But we go in cycles, you know, and Eastern philosophy has a theory about that, you know, with the Kali Yuga and all these years. It's a complicated theory, but as far as I understand it, there's cycles where human beings are more enlightened, then we go into a dark period, and then we are enlightened again or more peaceful, and then we go back to a dark period.
Yeah.
And that, I understand it, is part of existence and evolution, right? It's a cycle of birth and death and rebirth and death. And that's another principle that is very important to understand for navigating our life in a healthy way, right?
Yeah.
There is our mission in life is not to be happy and comfortable, right? Those of course we aim at being happy and healthy and comfortable, but that's not the goal. That happens eventually because you do the right things.
Yeah.
But our mission is to grow, to evolve, to help others. And those times of darkness and suffering is what helps us evolve, right? And I know this from several spiritual teachers that I follow, and I also believe it. I feel it in my heart that is totally makes sense, and is logical, right? And it's
so basically, I mean, so I would say not spirituality. The whole world is moving towards spiritual. Maybe not spirituality, but maybe the whole world is moving towards inner consciousness, right? I mean, they are trying to be more, more conscious from inside, and then with all this internet, they're basically, whenever they find, because most of the people, I would say at least more than 95% of people, when they have something, when they come across something in their life, some hardship or something, they basically want to fight it and get out of it and try to be a better human being, right? And with this internet, I think they're easily moving towards spirituality. Because that is what is giving them all the answers, I feel. Maybe that is why they are shifting more towards the inner consciousness side. And that's just my thought.
Yes, Raviji, of course. Yes, I understand what you're saying. I think you're saying that technology may be helping accelerating communication and acceleration of data information. Yes. And it can be as good as it can be bad, because there is a lot of misinformation. We are glued to the phone instead of being connected to our inner beings. So we have to find a balance with technology. But yeah, of course, if you follow the cycle of the years, we are going into the era of Aquarius, and we're shifting into from a more dark place to a more enlightened place in the world. But it's all a cycle, so it's going to go back to darkness again, unfortunately. I don't know what's going to happen. But it's fascinating, to understand that everything is a cycle. You see it in nature. Everything borns and dies, and you have to make space for new life. So dying is not that bad. It's just part of life. And then you come back.
So because you have said there could be a lot of misinformation, and there could be even misguided as well with this internet. So what according to you is a very good place, or a good place for people to know about their inner conscious or spirituality, or whenever they have any kind of hardship, when they're looking for something, what do you think is a good source for them? Because for us, me being from India, I know, like, there are so many gurus. There's my parents, and there are temples, and there are priests who we know everybody. And then whenever there's something, we can just talk to them and get some guidance. But that's not the case with people who are here, right? So is there any good one-stop shop, for all this?
No. There's no one formula, one-stop shop. No, I don't think so. That's a great question. That's fantastic, because in America we want that. We want the instant package. Give me the pill that is going to fix me. Give me the medicine. Give me the easy way. No, you have to find yourself. You have to go through it. You have to walk the path, and you have to find the answers. It's not easy, but it is fun. You know, that's what life is all about, is finding, discovering, exploring, asking questions. But I don't think I can tell people where to go to find answers, because it depends on so many variables. You know, it depends on their culture, their religion they want to belong to. A lot of people go to their own churches with their own priests for advice. Other people are not spiritual at all. They don't even want to ask anyone. You know, they just deal with it through psychologists, therapists, medicine, prescription medications. So I don't know, it's complicated. I would say, if I can give one word of advice that is in general for everyone in the United States when they are in a difficult situation, just know, you know, you don't need anyone to get out of a difficult situation. Even when you may feel very, very weak or lost or in pain, you have everything you need. The package is within you. You know, the magical pill is not in the pharmacy, is inside of you. But when it's dark, it's hard to see that you have it all to overcome anything. And I truly believe that, you know, it's within you. And that is the new spirituality that I see a lot. Well, I call it new spirituality because it's just a more practical way that some spiritual teachers present spiritual principles to young crowds or Western minds, is like, forget about all the practice, the asanas, just go directly to yourself. But that's hard too, you know, because I see people how they struggle, you know, in spiritual gatherings.
One thing that I told one of my friend when he was having a hard time is, I told him, forget all this, stop looking in your phone, look into your laptop, and stop watching TV and everything. Just go into the nature. You know, that's where you will find all your answers.
Yes, that's great advice, Raviji. Yeah, going to nature, I do that a lot. Hiking or walking in a park, or if you have a hiking trail, go in nature, or go camping, join a group. You know, getting out of your city, out of your environment, out of your comfort zone. That's why I think, you know, if you are ready to explore more, you can go to India. You know, if you are in a very difficult situation and you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel and you're stuck, shake it off, you know, do something, you know, that is going to move the foundation, right? And sometimes that is doing a trip, right? Going out of your country, getting out of your environment, the circle of friends, the same thing, work. Take a month and go travel. And in India, you can find spiritual places, teachers that maybe if you're lucky, if grace is with you, maybe grace will guide you to the right person.
So would you recommend Rishikesh as the place to go, in your experience, of course? I mean, as a place to go for people who want to, I mean, let's say they want to do a solo trip. Nowadays, one more thing is, nowadays solo trip is pretty, what do you call that? Pretty trendy, I think.
Popular.
Yeah, pretty popular with youngsters, right? They basically do solo trips to all over the world. So if they want to do a solo trip that has to do with spirituality, that has to do with, I mean, discovering themselves and knowing themselves, and if they want to go to India, do you think Rishikesh is the place to go, or what other places do you think are there?
Yeah, I mean, you can go anywhere in the world. You know, there are beautiful places like New Zealand. If you want to be in touch with nature, that's the place. It's so beautiful, fantastic. I haven't been there, but I want to go. It's on my list. it depends on your culture, you know. Maybe also you want to go to Mecca, to Jerusalem, you know. It's also a very spiritual place.
Yeah.
um so in talking in terms of India, Rishikesh is called the yoga capital of the world.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place by the river Ganges. It's a very energetic spiritual place. It is believed, I know you know this, but for people who are watching, it is believed that it's highly charged with spiritual energy, because a lot of saints and great souls have walked that area and lived there and meditated there. So it's charged with that energy. I feel it when I go. I definitely am in tune with that. I love the place. It's beautiful. I think it's a dry, low place. Like there's no alcohol in the city. It's a small city. So it's dedicated to spiritual practices. So there's no alcohol, no drugs, hopefully, right? So yeah, it's beautiful. And you see people bathing in the Ganges and just talking there, and it's fantastic. And there's a lot of ashrams and yoga places. I saw a lot of young people. But I think there is a difference, right, Ravi, that I want to mention, that sometimes, especially when we are young, we sometimes we are seeking an experience, right? I see that on a lot of my young friends, that they want to travel to fancy places, you know, and put it on Facebook because they want that experience. They want the world to see that they are here and they are having a fancy dinner, you know. But that is not spirituality, in my personal view, right? Very respectful your lifestyle. But in my opinion, if you really are looking for a real change, real transformation, you have to go very humble and in silence, right? Very humble, and not necessarily seeking an experience, because then if you don't feel maybe an experience, you will feel disappointed because you had an expectation of this life-changing experience. It could be a life-changing experience. Maybe it's a slow change, you know, a progressional change. So yeah, I would recommend, if you want to go visit and have the experience and party and be with young crowds, you know, that's one thing. That's fine. If you want to do that, that's wonderful and beautiful. But if you want more like a serious transformation, spiritual growth, I will say just get in touch with people who are maybe older and more serious, that can point you to ashrams that are serious, that are really disciplined, dedicated to the practice, to help someone in their health and mental health.
I always tell people that spirituality is for wise people and to make them wiser, you know. So
yeah, I love that. I agree.
yeah. So I wanted to talk to you a little about Ayurveda as well. Basically, how widely you think is Ayurveda in this country is being used, basically?
Yes, I learned Ayurveda more for my own curiosity and knowledge for myself, you know, so I could be more informed about health practices and nutrition and panchakarma techniques, you know, what can they do for a person. And I got a lot of them done on myself by Ayurveda practitioners. So I know what it is, and I learned to do some formulas and some panchakarma treatments. But I don't do that. You know, I'm not a yoga practitioner formally providing that service. I can refer you to one or several in India or in the United States, but I don't personally do it for others. But I can guide you. You know, I have some basic knowledge of what Ayurveda is and how can it help you. And also the psychology of Ayurveda, you know, the gunas, the Raja, Tamas, and Sattva, state of mind, all of that. It's a very good theoretical frame to explain our mind and how can we manage our mind, which is my specialty, right? The mind and mental health. So in the United States, I think it's slowly gaining more attention, Ayurveda, but we are not there as yet, you know, as much as in India. Of course, this is a practice
Yeah,
that
even in
is
India, I
very
think
old.
it's not much actually.
Yes, I know. I heard that, and I think there is a revival now. No, I
Yeah,
heard that it is a revival.
yeah.
And I'm also on Twitter, and I talk to a lot of people in India that are hardcore
Mm,
Sanatanis and
mm,
Sanatan Dharma followers. So they talk a lot about going back to our roots, the true
yeah.
India before England, and
Mm.
um, Ayurveda and all of that.
Yeah, no, now they've made Ayurveda surgeries also legal in India. So basically, Ayurveda is an alternate to the actual medicine, basically. So now it's all
Yeah.
legalized in India. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I think it's great. It's
Mm,
it's it's an option for people, for us to choose. If we want to go to a Western doctor or more like a natural Ayurvedic doctor. I think
mm,
it's gaining more and more and more strength. Here
mhm,
in the US, there is a wonderful place run by Basan Lad, Dr. Lad, in New Mexico. It's called the
mhm,
Ayurvedic Institute.
mhm,
And he's done great, great work. He runs the place. He's from India and he lives
mhm,
there.
mhm.
And they do certifications, trainings, 4-year degree, Ayurveda
Oh, really?
practitioner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like a bachelor's degree in Ayurveda and specialties.
Mm,
Wonderful. I haven't been there, but I know about it, and
mhm.
I have some of his books that he's published on Ayurveda.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, there's some things happening here in Ayurveda, but very slow,
Mm,
because
yeah.
some
It
things are not.
yeah, I think it has to be a word mouth to mouth only. You cannot like do a marketing for it. It's that kind of feel, like, I feel.
Yeah, yeah. It depends on what's going on, where you live, and
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah. Here in Dallas, I found a woman who runs an Ayurvedic clinic. I want to visit her just for curiosity to see how
No,
she's
really.
doing, but
Mm,
it looks like she's doing it very seriously, and very good
mhm,
place uh,
mhm.
here in Dallas.
Yeah, that's cool. So I wanted to, ask you. Maybe I thought I'll ask you in the end, but I think this is the right time to ask. What So, are you basically happy with your? You definitely seem to be happy. I don't. It's maybe a wrong question, but then, um, like, did you get what you want from your spiritual journey? And basically, do you feel that you are in the right path? And how do you always? Um, I
That's a lot
mean,
of questions, just one
yeah.
at a time. First
No,
question.
I'll let you talk basically. I'll not interrupt you, but the gist of my question is, um, did you get what you want from spirituality? But I mean, if you think that you got what you want, how do you know that that is what you always wanted? And then how do you keep, what do you call it? I mean, how do you convince yourself that that is the right path you're going into? You know?
Yes, I love your questions. I mean, you're very passionate, and these are very deep, good questions. Yeah, but sometimes it's like a lot of questions in one package, and I
Yeah.
lose track. Okay, first question is, how do I know
Yeah,
I am in the right path?
I actually didn't want to make it a question and answer. I just wanted to give you a sense of what I'm asking, and then whatever sense you get, you can just talk on it. I don't mind you talking because this is a podcast. I didn't want it to be a question and answer thing, So,
Yes.
yeah.
Um, I think the spiritual path is always going,
Mm,
right? We cannot say, well, I'm going to speak for myself. I cannot say, okay, I arrived. This is all I ever wanted. I'm done.
mm,
And I don't want that. That will be boring. Like, okay,
mm.
I'm done now. What's next, right?
Yeah.
And it's not possible. That's a little bit of also the same mentality of the quick answer, the package that is going to solve all our issues. And I finally arrived.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't work like that. even when you are an enlightened person, you know, like those great souls that have really achieved illumination and enlightenment, they also deal with issues. You know, they had family problems, legal problems, lawsuits, you know, and the more famous you are, the more other people want to block your path. So even spiritual people have to deal with egos and problems. And so again, you know, life is not about eternal happiness and I finally arrived. But definitely, you know, if I can answer or comment on how I feel in my path, yes, I'm in the right path. There's no other path. We are all in the same path. We are all together. You can call it different names or different colors depending on your views and your belief systems. But to me, you know, I have been through a lot of pain as well, you know, and just recently, this last year that just ended, it was very hard for me, and people may never see it because, you know, I'm presenting an image on YouTube that I try to be positive and a support, a light for people, right, as much as I can. But I also have my issues, you know, that I deal with, but I try to deal with them in a positive way and not get drowned by them. You know, I was in my master's degree that I'm studying right now is 3 years. It's taking me more than 4 years. You know, it's been very hard because I work full time and I have my projects, and studying a graduate degree, it has been very hard. And I found bumps in the road, you know, that could set me back, and maybe I was ready to give up, but I didn't. You know, I just continue, go with the flow, learn from my mistakes or challenges. And that is helping me grow exponentially, I feel, you know, because of the path that I want to follow of really being a better human being, you know, instead of creating problems for others and being a victim of problems or challenges, you know, you just keep going and learn from them.
Yeah, so it's like a daily learning process, you're saying. It's a never-ending learning process.
Yes, of course. And I also know from other spiritual practitioners like us, you know, that sometimes they have highs and lows. You know, they feel maybe for a period of time, several months, they feel great. They feel that they are advancing in their sadhana, in their practice. They meditate for hours. They feel amazing. They have revelations. And then they go through a period of, you know, no such success. Everything goes wrong. You know, it's part of the process, yes. But it's all a learning experience. It's all good.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I actually really like what you're doing with your organization. Like you're so passionate about the whole spirituality and the inner consciousness. I really like what you're doing, actually. Um,
Thank you.
and do you have anything to say before we? I mean, maybe if you want to convey something to the viewers.
Yes, Ravi. Well, thank you for the opportunity. I think it's very graceful of you to do these interviews, you know, and help others. And I think if we can make a good use of YouTube is to, you know, present messages that could help others, right? And yeah, right now that we are going through difficult times, you know, COVID-19 and things like that, a lot of people have lost relatives, friends. You know, I know of friends who have died, and even close relatives in Mexico of my own have died, not necessarily of COVID, but of other diseases. But all of this is just making it more difficult. You know, 25 million people have lost their jobs and their insurance in the United States. So, you know, I think it's 400,000 people have died. So this is very serious, right? But again, if I have a message today, would be that trust the universe, even when it could be very, very painful, and you are going to be fine. You're going to be okay. Human beings, we are more resilient than we think. Sometimes it's like, what we worry too much and it's going to be fine. You're not gonna, nothing is going to happen if you lose your job, right? There's always a way. There's always someone who can help. There's always something you can do to get by until things get better. And remember, those people who have suffered so much, like in concentration camps, and have survived, and the message that they have is that you have the powers within you. You have the choice of taking your pain as your guru, as your teacher, or suffering and being a victim of life, right? So that would be my message.
That's awesome.
And seek help. You're not alone. There are professionals. I do life coaching, but as soon as I graduate from my mental health studies, I will be able to provide therapy services, psychology services. So that's very, very helpful when you are like in a very, very difficult situation and you don't see yourself coming out. Seek help. Go to a professional, talk to them, and you are not alone.
Yeah. So if somebody has to reach out to you, you are on YouTube, and your website is inner-wellbeing.com, and you're on Twitter, Instagram.
Yeah. It's all with Inner Wellbeing. My website is inner-wellbeing altogether.com, and I'm on YouTube, Inner Wellbeing Altogether. Yeah.
That's really nice. All right. Thank you so much, Claudia. Thanks for your time, and it was really nice talking to you. I really enjoyed.
Thank you, Ravi. Yes, I think you too. Good luck with your channel, and thank you so much for thinking of me.